I'm Jack Roberts. If your converter isn't red, then you.
I'm Ricky Bobby. If you don't chew Big Red, then you.
Yeah, let's go.
Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If you couldn't tell from the intro, today I'm going to be talking about some of my Hughes Performance stuff that came in. A huge shout out to Pete Nichols over there. As you can see, some of the stuff I got was this nice hat, t-shirt, and all this stuff behind me here. So anyways, just a note on that intro, I don't actually have anything against other converter brands. I've had fast customers, and my car actually was pretty fast with a PTC as well. However, I've just had better luck with Hughes than anybody else, and unmatched customer service. And I'm super excited to be working with them. I think all of these parts are going to make a huge difference in my program. So anyways, let's get right into what we're changing. So first up, we will go with the converter itself. This actually was originally my PTC. I ended up sending it in to them. Me and Pete were talking about it, and he told me, you know, just go ahead and send it in and they'll convert it over to their specs. So they make some changes on the inside and completely change it up to exactly how they would if they built it in the first place. Another change that they made was they made it into a bolt together, as you can see here. So typically a converter will be welded together, as I'm sure most of you have seen, and the issue with that is if you want to make a change, you have to send the converter back to the company and have them cut it apart, change the stator, and then weld it back together and send it back to you. So with a bolt together like this, I could, for example, if I had too loose of a stator, I could call Pete and tell him that I need a tighter one, and we could go over the data, and he would tell me what he thinks I need, and we could you know, talk it through and figure out exactly you know, how much power I may have left, or what I'm planning to do, and we could get exactly what we need, and then he could ship that to me. If I wanted to, I could just buy that one and then keep this one too, in case I wanted to have the looser stator for another surface or something. Like typically you'll have a looser stator for the street or no prep than you will on like a radio prep or something. So I could do that, or I could trade my stator out and put the new one in there, and then I could just unbolt this, pull the top off, and swap the stator out, and then bolt it back together and be good to go. And also, if I had multiple stators, if I really wanted to, which I don't really plan to, I could even change the stator while I'm at the track and, you know, make another pass and see what the difference makes, and if it's where I want it to be. So converter is a huge part of the stock bottom end stuff. As I have said before, you really don't, the biggest thing you want to avoid is having it too tight, but then again, of course, if it's too loose, and it's just going to be wasting power and not putting it to the ground. So it's kind of a balancing act, and it's not a very easy one to do, especially on a 4.8 liter like mine with a giant turbo. I definitely have one of the hardest combos to spec a converter for, so that's another reason why we went with a bolt together, because it's very possible that this stator might not be the right one. And speaking of stator, how it changes how tight or loose the converter is off of the amount of windows that it has in the stator, and the angle of the fins in the stator as well. So typically a higher blade count, you'll usually have two numbers. For example, if you have a 1535 or a 150 or something like that, if it's a PTC, then that means there's 15 blades and the angle of them is 35 degrees. So if you went from, say, that to a 1635, then that would be looser, because there are more windows for fluid to get through, so there's less restriction for the fluid to go through. That's just a basic explanation. I would highly recommend going to Hughes Performance channel and checking out their series on torque converters if you really want to learn more. But anyways, as I said, this was the PTC that I had originally, and it is a Nissan 9.5 core, so 9.5 inch, and that is a very common core for a lot of different companies to use. So if you didn't know, just about every converter will end up being a factory converter out of a production car, and then the converter companies such as Hughes will make some modifications in order to make it do exactly what they want and be able to have some adjustability and all kinds of stuff like that. So there's also some just fully custom converters. However, those are a lot more rare, and typically you only see that in like classes like Radio versus the World or something, where you could have like a fully billet bolt together converter. But yeah, anyways, enough about the converter. This is another thing that we got, the Sonex SmartTech servo that is going to help with the high RPM shifts. As I have said before, I plan to take this thing to 9K if it'll make it there. So 9,000 RPM, you really that's a smart upgrade for if you're going to be shifting it that high. That will help with the band life, and that'll also help the band grab a little bit harder in first year, so that will help as well. And anyways, I also got some stickers, as you can see, gap guarantee. I've got all kinds of choices there. And then over here we got some transmission parts. As you can see, I've got all of the seals and gaskets and everything, and the filter that I need in order to rebuild it. So I will be good to go there. And then right here we have this is actually the band. This is a Raybestos band. It is probably the best, or it is the best aftermarket option for a Power Glide. Believe it or not, the stock bands are actually probably the best option, but I was in a hurry and didn't have time to source one of those. They are not very common since people know that. So we got that one. We should be good to go. That's what my transmission had in it before. And then over here you can see a bunch of little gears and stuff like that. This is all going to be for the planetary here. This is to change the ratio of my transmission. I had a 1.80 first gear ratio. This is going to be used to change it to a 1.69 first gear ratio. And the reason we're going to be doing that is so I can pretty much get more aggressive in the first 1 or 2 seconds of the run without having to worry as much about spinning or going into a wheelie or something with a more aggressive first gear. And also, since I plan to spin such high RPM, I'm going to have a pretty aggressive rear gear in the car. So with the 169 first gear, I will be able to run a really aggressive rear gear without having too crazy of a starting line ratio. But yeah, anyways, that's pretty much it. Basic overview of everything. I'm super excited to put all this stuff to use, and hopefully I can do it properly with all the transmission parts. As I have said before, this is the first time that I've ever even pulled any type of transmission apart, so a little bit nervous, but I also got a nice book from Pete that was very helpful and actually helped me realize some other things not even related to transmissions, just from reading it. So super helpful there, and super thankful for Pete. And I'm sure if I run into any issues, I will be able to ask him and he will hook me up. But yeah, I'm not sure how much I will be showing of the actual build process, just because I'm going to be really taking my time and not focusing as much on showing how I'm doing it, because I don't even know if I'm doing it right. But just wanted to give you guys a nice look of all the stuff I got and talk to you a little bit about it. Obviously all of this will also be paired with my 2-stage dump valve setup that I got from Hughes, and I think all of that combined will make a huge difference for my program. I think that is one place that I've been lacking, is just controlling everything to do with the transmission and converter and knowing more about it. That's one thing that I've really focused on a lot lately and learned a lot on. So I'm also going to be adding some sensors from Low Dollar. I will be adding a line pressure sensor there, and then I will also have a charge pressure sensor for the converter, so I can use that to see what is happening inside the converter essentially as I'm going down the track. But yeah, also, as you guys know, I am a dealer for Hughes Performance, so if you need any of this stuff or think any of this may be beneficial for you, feel free to send me a message on Facebook or email me or whatever. I have my contact info in the description. So let me know if you need anything or if you just have any questions, and I would be happy to help you out. All right, guys, just wanted to check in. I went ahead and got the new planetary gears installed for the new 169 gear set. As you can see, I have the 180 gears out. Those were not the most fun to do. There is 200 needle bearings that have to be packed into these, but I got it all done. Also have the hub put back together with the new piece for the 169 gear set. So we're getting closer. I finished the modifications to the pump as well. I need to put it back together, and then I also finished the modifications to the valve body for the dump valve setup. So we should be good to go. I'll get this thing put together a little bit more and then check back in. All right, guys, quick shout out Turbo John over here. Got my nice t-shirt on. Go check him out if you haven't already seen. And as you can see, I have the transmission mostly back together. Have the pump in there now, and now I just need to install the valve body and a few other things underneath, and then we're pretty much good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off of this makeshift stand and sit it on its upside down, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys, so as you can see behind me, I got this thing all finished up. I'll show you it real quick. So as you can see, I got the dump valve set up on there. This right here is the internal dump. It dumps from the valve body. This is just a pass through. It goes to a line that goes to the valve body, and basically that will dump fluid before it gets to the converter, so you can lower the pressure in the converter to essentially make it stall higher, which can help with building boost, or just if you're going down track and it needs to be looser for any reason. And then this is the external, so this will dump after it goes out of the converter. So this also has a sensor port here, which I will use to read the charge pressure or the exhaust pressure on the converter, and that's something that you need to watch. Well, you don't need to necessarily, but it's good to watch to make sure you don't take out the thrust bearing. If this is too high, and that means there's too much pressure in the converter, which pushes it up against the crank too hard, and it'll take out the thrust bearing. And that's another thing that's a benefit of the dump valve, is you can lower that pressure some, and also a benefit of one of the modifications that you make to the pump whenever you're installing the dump valve. But anyways, this internal dump will typically see 400 to 800 RPM higher stall speed, and the external dump, when used with the internal, will usually add another 200 to 400 RPM. There are some kits out there that only do external dump, and this on its own is usually not, or it's not near as effective as an internal dump. So the Hughes one-stage kit will just be the internal only, and then as you can see, this is my two-stage kit, which is internal and external, and then it just dumps the fluid right back into the pan. And yeah, that's pretty much that. Also, you can see I have their Hughes fluid, type F fluid. I'm going to be using that instead of High-Guard, which I had usually used before. The High-Guard will make the converter a little bit tighter, which I'm not really looking for with mine. We're pretty much trying to be make it as loose as we can. But also I have some low dollar sensors on the way, a sensor for the converter pressure, of course, and then the line pressure. And then I also have a temperature sensor coming in. This originally was just one that went to a gauge that was on the dash, but I want to have that logged in the ECU so I can look back at logs and see what my transmission temperature was, because that can affect how the converter acts and all that as well. So anyways, that's about it. So once again, big shout out to Hughes. Super happy with all the products, and can't wait to try them out. And don't forget that I am a dealer for them if you need anything. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.